Read this sentence once, and it's just information. Read it 5 separate times, spread across a week, and something strange starts happening in your brain. It starts feeling true, whether or not it actually is. This isn't a metaphor. It's a measurable, repeatedly proven effect, and once you understand it, you'll start noticing it everywhere, including in yourself. It's called the illusory truth effect, and psychologists first demonstrated it clearly back in 1977 in a study led by researchers Lynn Hasher, David Goldstein, and Thomas Tapino. Participants were shown a series of statements, some true, some false, and asked to rate how confident they were in each one. The same statements were shown again across multiple sessions spread over weeks. The result was strange and consistent. Statements people had seen more than once were rated as more believable, purely because they'd been seen before, regardless of whether they were actually accurate. Repetition alone was enough to shift belief. Not new evidence, not a compelling argument, just familiarity, quietly doing the persuading on its own. Here's the mechanism behind it. Your brain uses a mental shortcut when judging whether something is true, and that shortcut is fluency. If a statement feels easy and smooth to process, familiar, comfortable, your brain interprets that ease as a signal of truth. The problem is, familiarity and accuracy are two completely different things, and your brain frequently confuses one for the other without you noticing at all. Think about advertising slogans you can recite instantly, without ever having actually verified the underlying claim. Or a rumor about a public figure that you've heard so many times it simply feels established as fact, even if you couldn't actually trace it back to a real source if someone asked you to. Political misinformation researchers have studied this effect extensively and found something particularly troubling. Simply repeating a false claim over and over, even specifically to debunk it, can accidentally increase how believable it feels to the audience hearing it. The repeated exposure to the false claim itself does the damage, almost independent of whether it's being presented as true or false. Which creates a genuinely awkward problem for anyone trying to correct misinformation. Simply saying a claim out loud, even while explaining it's false, can leave the audience with a stronger, more familiar impression of the claim than the correction attached to it. Advertisers have understood this instinctively for decades, long before psychologists gave it a formal name. Slogans repeated constantly across decades aren't really trying to convince you of anything through argument. They're just trying to make a specific phrase feel unmistakably familiar, and therefore, quietly, trustworthy. Here's what makes this effect particularly hard to defend against. Studies have found that even people who are told directly about the illusory truth effect and warned in advance still show measurable susceptibility to it. Understanding the trick intellectually doesn't fully protect you from falling for it. Some research even suggests that repeated exposure to a false claim can outweigh existing knowledge that directly contradicts it. People who technically know a statement is false can still rate it as more believable after hearing it repeated enough times, their gut feeling quietly overriding what they actually know. Which raises an uncomfortable question about the sheer amount of repeated content most people encounter daily. Scrolling through feeds built specifically to serve up the same handful of narratives again and again. Researchers studying misinformation online have pointed to this exact mechanism as part of why certain false claims spread so effectively on social media. It's rarely one single, brilliantly persuasive argument. It's usually just relentless repetition, doing the quiet work that argument never had to. So here's a genuinely useful, if slightly unsettling question to start asking yourself. The next time something feels obviously true, ask whether that feeling is actually coming from evidence, or simply from how many times you've encountered the claim before. Your brain can't always tell the difference between something it knows and something it's just heard enough times to stop questioning.